Well, good morning, everybody. It's January 11th on a bleak winter's day. Although winter's sunlight is often the best time to take pictures, I thought I would walk around our house and talk about it from a historical perspective as well as a construction point of view. This house was built around 1830, making it 193 years old. This property the house sits on has been a farm since 1754. It is a solid brick construction. The walls, depending on which wall you're looking at, are around 18 inches thick, solid brick, no hollow core. It's a Half-Georgian style house. You have 6/6 windows all around the house. Approximately 95% of the window panes in the house are original to it. I have done all the restoration work to it myself, or I should say most of it, and the work I didn't do myself I will definitely point out. The bottom wooden window is a cellar window. Then you have the parlor, and you have our bedroom or master bedroom up there. And in that center window is the window for the central hallway, which is a 3-landing staircase. The only nails used in the construction of this house are hand-cut steel nails for the floorboards inside. And you can see everything is done with joinery. Even out here, there's a peg with a mortise and tenon joint. And then this bead running down here, this is one solid big piece of wood, and this is all hand planed. This bottom windowsill here had rotted out, and I replaced that. I have pulled all these windows out of their frames, upper and lower sashes, taken all the panes out of all the windows, and actually resealed the panes into their mullions. And then I had custom-made storm windows made to protect the old glass, but also to improve insulation. Back in 1754, this property was part of a huge land grant called the Beverly Land Grant, granted by King George III. A family by the name of Kerr, K-E-R-R, or Kerr, immigrated from Pennsylvania into the Shenandoah Valley here in Virginia. In fact, the whole Shenandoah Valley, which is bounded on the east by the Blue Ridge and on the west by the Alleghenies, were not settled by Englishmen. The valley was settled mainly by people from Scotland, Ireland, and Germany. And the family that got this place originally and built this house were from Germany. The brick was all made on site, where a kiln was made, dug down through this topsoil into the subsoil and got the clay and fired the brick on site, and everything was made here. All of the mortar is original to the house, except for places that have been repointed. Let me show you. For example, this is original mortar, and this is too. This has been repointed with and the mortar that's been used to repoint was made from a recipe determined by samples of the old mortar. I didn't do this repointing, I had it done. And if you walk around the house, you will see brick that is kind of shiny and discolored, like this one right here. I'm reaching up, and that's because that particular brick was closer to the fire than its neighbors in the kiln and developed a glaze. So when the Kerr family in 1754 got the land grant as part of the Beverly Land Grant, they built a log house, and we think the log house was over somewhere where the L part of the house is. And then by probably the 1820s or 18 teens, they became your very typical prosperous valley grain farmers. People became wealthy around here prior to the Civil War from farming grain. And then around 1828, they started construction on this house, and then it was finished around 1830. Back then, like today, people liked to show off if they had money, but they were less ostentatious about it back then compared to today. So for example, one of the things that separates this house is that it doesn't have a rock foundation. It's brick all the way down through the full cellar, which is here's one of the windows into the cellar, a full stand-up cellar under the house. And if you notice, the course of brick changes as you go up to about here. This is the last full header row along the wall. Down below, it's more like common American bond and then header. So common American bond and then header right here. Common American bond going up the wall here, and then header. And then you have 2 rows of common American bond, and then you start getting into staggered Flemish bond. Staggered Flemish bond starts at about eye level, where it's easy to see from the street, at least it was back then from the road. And staggered Flemish bond was a high style way of laying brick because it was more labor intensive, and it took more materials, and it was more decorative. So that was one way that they showed off their money. The other way is way up there in the top, which is curved brick soffits, all made here on site. And this is one of 3 houses in Augusta County, Virginia, here in the valley, that have curved brick soffits. And another way that they showed money was by having this brick foundation all the way down into the cellar and not sitting on limestone rock. Sitting on limestone was a way to cut corners, because this was an era in the 1820s and 30s, the beginning of the industrial age in the US anyways. And so back then, moving away from natural materials into man-made materials was high style. And if you move around to the side, you can see, and I'll show you as we go on, the bond kind of changes from staggered Flemish into a less decorative pattern because it's not visible from the road. I built this front porch. When we moved in, the house we moved in here in '87, and the house had another porch on it. But it was pretty dilapidated. I don't know what the original porch would have looked like, but I did find 3 different roof lines. The one at the very top, the flat one going straight across, that was the porch I tore down. And you can follow down below, see a change in the color of brick. There's a slanted roof line. And then there's a third one down below that, which you can't see, because that's the roof line I used to define the dimensions of the new porch. Now, whether the stairs went out to the side or out to the front, what it looked like actually, I do not know. But I just found some old pictures and just followed this pattern, and I built this myself. This little structure here I also built, trying to keep it in character of the house. It's the cover over the cellar door or cellar entranceway. Originally, as far as I can tell, it never had a cover, just a door, and of course it was a place for water to get in below. But it doesn't now, and I finished this and at the same year as the porch in 1996, and I left little messages written in indelible magic marker on inside, just leaving little time capsules and stuff. Now the front part of the house is considered a Half-Georgian style, and there has an L on the back. And a Half-Georgian style basically is it's 1 room deep and 2 rooms wide, with a central 3 landing staircase. making it have the appearance of being 3 rooms wide. So this front Georgian house only has 1 room down below and 1 room above on each side. So this part's only like 4 rooms, but the rooms are huge in there. The total house is about 4,000 square feet when you add in our addition we had built in 1998, and without that addition it's about 3,300 square feet. Let's go over here and look at the L. Now it's interesting on this side, in other words, as you get away from the public side of the house, so to speak, you'll find more of these glazed bricks. So the masons did save the so-called deformed bricks or discolored bricks and put them in a less visible place on the house. But since they had to make them one at a time here on site, they weren't going to waste any. So there you go. Now there's more repointing work done here, you can see, compared to the original, because this is definitely the windward side of the house. And you see up there, it's pretty clear how there's a different, all that has been repointed because it's very exposed to the weather. Less so now because we've planted lots of windbreaks behind us. You'll find header bricks like this in the wall all around the house. You see here's one here. You see it's been repointed in. Here's another one that was done long before we moved in. It's been closed up. And you see them spaced all along the walls of the house. You can find them. And they go up about every 4 feet or so, all the way up. And there's one right there in the middle. And there's another one way up there. You can see them, they kind of stand out. And what they were holders for scaffolding. And so they really thought long term back then. When they were building something back then, they were building it to last, not like new houses you see today. And so the idea was, as they put the wall together, as they went up in the wall, they had scaffolding. And the scaffolding was made of boards that would stick out, and they would lay planks along the parts of the boards that stuck out, like here, and there'd be a board sticking out or a post sticking out, and there'd be planks going across the top. And then they would just go on up the wall as the wall would get higher and as they were laying brick. And then as they came down, because the wall got finished, they would remove the scaffolding and then shove the brick into those holes. But they would not mortar the brick in, because just in case they needed to come back in 100 years or whatever and remortar everything and redo the mortar. But over time, those loose bricks that have just been sitting in there have been mortared in. And we had some of them mortared in, but most of them were kind of already done before we moved here. The house itself has 2 chimneys on the front part of the house. Here's one here on the end, and this one's flush. It's an interior chimney, and it serves 2 fireplaces. One in this room down here, which is the living room, and one upstairs, which is a guest bedroom. And there's one on the opposite end of the house, which is actually exterior to the wall. And so symmetry was a pure Georgian design. Then you have 2 more chimneys over here, and that chimney on the end is active. We have our wood stove going in that today. It's burning very cleanly, you can see, because there's no smoke coming out, but believe me, there's a nice fire going in there. And then this chimney right here in the middle serves the dining room and this bedroom right up above. Here's a good example on the side of the house that's not visible to the public, where the bond of the brick became less complicated. So you had more of a combination of instead of staggered Flemish, you have Flemish and common American bond running up the wall. You also see more evidence of the glazed or so-called discolored brick back here. Now the L, from all evidence that we've been able to gather, was built at the same time as the front of the house. So it's not an addition. So again, the fancy part faces towards the road, which is what everybody sees, and the less fancy part, which is the L back here, is well, it's you don't see it. So they chose to put their money basically where the public would visit, or friends would visit, and it also shows on the inside with regards to the decorative fashion of all the woodwork in there. And there is some beautiful old woodwork inside this house. Here's some more of those glazed, discolored bricks. And here's a nice view of the L, and I'll show you the external chimney in the back of the L, which serves my office up above there, which is that second story, second window right there. And then down there is our kitchen with wood stove going, and up here there's in my office that chimney serves. And of course that other chimney right up there in the middle is an interior chimney, totally interior. Well, here's the way this exterior chimney is constructed. It's a two-flue chimney, like all of them in this house. It has a stepwise fashion going up there. And again, you can see more of those glazed over brick. And then down there is an old ash dump in the old fireplace. Now, I had to rebuild the fireplace in there myself because it had collapsed. That's another story when I get to the inside at some point, and I'll talk about that. Chimney's fully lined. The inside of the original flue is like 2 feet by 2 feet at least, and this bottom part of the chimney is a full size cook fireplace in the kitchen. Here is the back of the house, and you can see the brick is original. The wooden frame addition is an addition we had put on, as well as this back porch in 1998. And of course all these windows back here are double paned modern windows. Some more of the less fancy bonds on the brick, because again, this is not a public side of the house. We're in the back entrance way. And here's that cellar entrance I made. I didn't do the roofing. The roof that was on here was a standing seam metal roof, just like this, except it was a galvanized roof, which many people mistakenly call a tin roof. It's galvanized steel, and so it was about 90 years old and not holding paint anymore because you can't use lead-based paint. And I was just getting tired of having the roof painted about every 6 years. And so in 2016, we had a new roof put on the house by about the only company left in the area that knows how to do a true standing seam metal roof. Let me show it to you more closely. In the old style, the really old style, there would be a crimp, and then it would be sealed with solder, a leaded solder. But this is not. This is crimped, and then they crimp it by hand, and then they run a machine up and down those ridges to crimp them over, and then added snow brakes, which we do need here. Well, thanks for watching Ken's Show and Tell. This concludes our brief exterior tour of our 193-year-old house.